Welcome to episode 1 of the Beyond the Guitar podcast, where I help you play the music you love and where we talk all things guitar and beyond. I'm Nathan Mills, joined by my co-host and good friend, Jeremiah Diaz.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
So I've been making content online on YouTube and other platforms for about 5 years now under the banner of Beyond the Guitar. But I've been thinking about a podcast for a while now. And Jeremiah and I have been talking about it recently, and we thought there's never been a better time to start than now with everything that's going on in the world and how uncertain things are right now for people. We wanted to give you another outlet and, even at the very least, a distraction from the stresses of day-to-day life, and another way for me to share with you guys and to teach you. And with this first episode, we wanted to just take this as an opportunity to introduce ourselves and to tell our story and our history as musicians and Jeremiah and I's friendship and just how Beyond the Guitar came to be. So I figured I would just start out by kind of going back for both of us to the early years of when we truly started out. In my case, learning guitar. I started in 8th grade was when I first got my guitar, but I wasn't really serious about it until 10th grade. And that's when Jeremiah and I met. We met in high school. And in 10th grade, that's when our good friend Jared came into our lives. And Jared is, at the time, he's the first guy that I met that was like a legitimate shredder. I felt like he was he could just play circles around me. Up until that point, I'd just been like strumming chords and didn't really know what I was doing. And so I met a guy who could actually play, and it really inspired me. And I feel like he kind of took me under his wing unofficially. And I feel like that's kind of a theme of my guitar playing journey. Once we venture off and talk about college and all that, it's kind of a theme of me being kind of an underdog playing catch up with other people around me. But I think there's a lesson there that I've learned, which is to surround yourself with people who are better guitarists than you or better musicians than you, because they're going to push you to be better. Otherwise, it's easy to get really complacent. Even now, I go through seasons where there are times when I need to kind of isolate myself in a way from other musicians, at least in the social media world, and kind of do my own thing so I don't get put into that comparison trap. But there are other times when I do need to surround myself with other guitarists who are better than me so that they can kind of give me that kick in the butt and some motivation there. But Jeremiah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or if you've experienced times in your life where there have been musicians who've really pushed you and inspired you to be better.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Jared was a kind of a catalyst for both of us, because we'd been hanging out since 9th grade, and then Jared came to our school, sophomore year. So I'd always wanted to play drums, but mostly for financial reasons, I could never get a drum set. And then Jared showed up, and he was he was like a freaking rocker. And so I could tell you were like, man, I gotta step up my game. And then my parents kind of saw you guys like both wanting to really get into music together, and then they were like, oh, well, maybe this is a good time for Jeremiah to get a drum set. So they kind of surprised me with the drum set. And then I started learning how to play drums. And actually, Jared could play drums as well. I don't think he would consider himself a drummer, but he was a pretty decent drummer. And so, it was cool. But aside from that, we lived. Our situation was kind of unique because we lived overseas. But we didn't get the opportunity to spend time with a lot of super talented musicians just because of the nature of where we were. We lived in Morocco, for people that are curious. But yeah, so it's just not the same, as maybe your typical American, like, you got your garage bands and like, kids in high school are into like different types of music and stuff. And definitely people were into all kinds of music in Morocco, but I think the access to like different kind of instruments and stuff was way more limited. So the fact that Jared kind of showed up in our lives was pretty cool, because like we got to meet someone that was like into the music that we liked, and also like he could play it. And we're like, oh man, this is pretty cool. So I actually got to see Jared a couple weeks ago. That was pretty cool. He came by. He was in town, and we spent a couple hours together, so that was cool. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think he was kind of a catalyst for that, at least in high school. And then my brother went to the college I ended up going to, and so he was visiting Morocco, my oldest brother, and he was into MIDI software called Propellerhead Reason, and he got me into that. And that's really when I started like composing on my own. Whereas before I was mostly just playing drums, and I could play like a few chords and guitar and stuff, which I can still do now. I haven't really gotten much better at guitar, but that's really when I got interested in like actually making music, mostly electronic music. But I also, for school and stuff, had to do like, more compositional stuff, like orchestral type stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's that actually just reminded me that I distinctly remember I think it was freshman year of high school, before all this started, I was over at your house and you had a classical guitar, and I had a Taylor steel string acoustic, and ironically we were like arguing about whether steel string or nylon was better, and you were making the case for how classical guitars have such a nicer tone, and I was so set in my ways for whatever reason about the Taylor, but yeah, you're the first one that helped bring me over to the other side. But
yeah,
it's just kind of weird how things work out.
Yeah. Both of my brothers played guitar, so that's how I had any sort of opinion over it. I mean, but like I said, right. I could only really play a few chords, and like, but yeah, I was still pretty snobby about it.
That's for good reason, though. It's the old nylon. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah.
But no, to your point, I do think it's crazy how it just worked out with such a small school, and like you said, there weren't too many other musicians to interact with. The fact that we were able to kind of, the few of us were able to get together and connect over music and form such a strong bond around it, and kind of generate the same tastes in music and all that, with some differences as well. But it's really cool how we were able to build such a strong connection without a big pool of people to choose from, and I mean, maybe that was part of it, but so we did the whole garage band thing. And I feel like we felt like we were God's gift to music. I was listening back. I mean, I guess I can only speak for myself, but
we took ourselves way too seriously for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like probably every high school rocker kid mentality. But I mean, it just goes, I think like the whole ego that went into it just goes to show with like the very first song that we composed was like 17 minutes long. It was like a rock metal magnum opus opera. We just thought it, I mean, it's like for your first song ever to be 17 minutes long, I think it says something about a level of narcissism that might be play. And it's really bad. I was listening to it today, yeah, but you got.
It's definitely not something I put on my resume.
Yeah, it's buried in my iTunes library, but you got to start somewhere. So, yeah, so we were doing the whole I was doing like, you started out just playing chords, then ventured off into the electric guitar realm, playing, rock and metal, and honestly did not venture into classical guitar until I started looking into college options, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And music was such a big part of my high school, and that's the only thing that I could imagine doing. So I was looking at, music degree options, and it was always coming down to either a degree with jazz guitar or classical guitar. And honestly, at the time, I didn't even really know what classical guitar was. All I knew was that I wasn't really a fan of jazz. And so I started looking into classical guitar and what that was, and ended up finding a teacher in a local music conservatory, which was another very fortunate thing. He was actually an incredible guitarist. His name was Marcelo de la Puebla, which he actually ended up having a piece dedicated to him by the great Leo Brouwer, which anybody in the classical guitar world knows. He's an amazing modern Cuban classical guitar composer. And I was able to study with him, and I ended up falling in love with the classical guitar, just with everything that you could do with just one guitar. And, I think the same thing drew me to the classical guitar that draws many people to it, which is this idea of, if you're to close your eyes and listen to a phenomenal classical guitarist, at times it can sound like, two or even more guitars playing at once, but just with one person in two hands. And I just thought that was incredible. And so I started falling in love with the instrument and the repertoire. And so that kind of set me off toward my trajectory, off toward college and toward the classical guitar. But I don't know, for you, Jeremiah, do you have kind of some insights you can share about your formative years? We kind of talked about it a little bit, but maybe anything else about your beginnings as a musician?
I mean, I feel like before we go back to me, we'd be remiss to pay homage to Opeth, because I kind of feel like that really got you started in the like the finger style stuff. Like you were playing a lot of the old school Opeth music that was like very very finger picky, and
yeah.
And I remember being super impressed by that. Like I'm trying to think of the names. I can't even think of the names anymore. Like Patterns in the Ivy, and like For Absent Friends, or oh man, what are some of those songs from Blackwater Park? The first song. What's the first song on that album?
Oh my goodness,
I can't remember.
Yeah, you're gonna put me on the spot.
Brain
Here,
fart.
I'll talk. I'll talk if you want to Google it. Oh yeah. They all had those they had those like finger style / classical guitar interludes throughout them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were at the time certainly like metalheads, but we were very selective metalheads, and so there were very few select bands that we really got into, and Opeth was certainly one of them, and one of my big influences for sure. And they did a lot of, they would mix in like steel string guitar and actual like classical guitars as well.
Yeah, they were cool because they had a lot of, I mean, I know you mentioned that you weren't a huge fan of jazz, but I wasn't at the time. But over time, I've gotten more into jazz. But like they were cool because they had a lot of jazz influence and classical influence, and then like metal influence, and so they had a lot of cool stuff in there. But yeah, Opeth, man, they're old school Opeth. They were the truth. But no, besides that, I mean, as far as classical music goes, I would say probably Debussy was a big influence on me. But other than that, I think it was probably my brother just like exposing me to what I could do, because I didn't really play piano or anything. I just played drums. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really connected with music, and I mean, I'm not like trying to brag, but I can put notes together in a way that's pleasing, I guess. But anyway, I mean, I went to college for it, and then I actually learned what I was doing, because prior to college, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just like putting things together. Like, oh, this sounds kind of cool, and this sounds kind of cool, whatever. But nothing. There was no theory behind it or anything like that.
Well, yeah, and I think that definitely is to your credit that I think sometimes it just comes, there's always a spectrum of talent and like what comes naturally to people, and that can always be enhanced by hard work or compensated by hard work, for whatever lack of talent there is. So there's a spectrum, but I definitely think you have this natural ability, because if talking about our first album, when I was listening back through it today, the last track, was it, I forget the name, Sullen, maybe?
Yeah.
It's just a piano track that you composed. And like you're saying, like at the time, you didn't even really play piano. It was like, kind of just plugging away through Reason, through the software, piecing stuff together. And like, it's still like, it stands out. Like when I listened through the whole album, that's the one track that I was like, wow, that's actually really nice. And like so I think that's definitely a testament to your ear and your ability as a composer. For those of you as well, there's going to be, people listening from the Arrangers Academy that I've put together, teaching people how to make their own classical and fingerstyle guitar arrangements. Jeremiah is the composer for the piano tune Mist that's in the Arrange With Me course, where I walk you through an arrangement step by step. And he's going to be composing more tunes for future iterations of that course as well. So some of you have already had your ears blessed by his genius.
I hope so.
But yeah, so moving on to college, so I ended up getting both my bachelor's and master's degrees in classical guitar performance. And like I was talking about before, that same kind of theme of kind of being a little bit late to the game, being the underdog, played out when I got to college my freshman year. I got there and I'd been taking classical guitar lessons for I guess just maybe a year and a half at that point. So I feel like I got into the program by the skin of my teeth. I'm very thankful to this day for my professor, John Paticula, for essentially taking a chance on me, because I was very new to the game. And when I saw my other classmates and their abilities, I could tell that I was a little bit of a late bloomer, and I had my work cut out for me. And I think I'm grateful for that in a sense, because it really lit a fire under me, and I worked really hard, especially in those first couple years, to play catch up. And overall, I would say my experience, both in my undergraduate and graduate degrees, was very positive, and I owe so much of what I'm doing now in my career to what I learned there. But I did struggle throughout my college career with a couple things, and mainly just the whole experience was kind of colored by this uncertainty about what I was going to do after I graduated. I was kind of just following this path that I felt like was the typical thing to do. I was going to get my degree in guitar performance, then move on and get my master's in classical guitar performance, and then move on to potentially get my doctorate and then teach at a university. But I was just going through the motions, and the whole time I still didn't really believe that was necessarily going to be a possibility for me. And so that was kind of this weight that I had on me throughout my whole career there, of just wondering if this was all going to even pan out. And so kind of along those lines, I always like to give advice to anybody who is currently pursuing a degree in music. There's so much value to it. But just like with many degrees, but I would say even more so with the arts or in music, the degree itself is definitely not going to land you any type of job when you get out. It's what you learn within that process. And so one thing that I wish that I was doing at the time was focusing on building a career for myself while I was in school, rather than just focusing on learning and becoming the best that I could be. That in and of itself is super important. And that's one of the opportunities that you get pursuing a degree in music. You get that time to develop and hone your craft. But that's also the time to start building other related skills, like, skills that I use today, like being able to shoot and edit videos of myself and record myself, and all these skills that as a musician you want to have in this modern age. But I wasn't focusing on any of that while I was in school. So for anybody out there listening that is, considering pursuing a degree, or is currently, start thinking about how you can be building a career now. So after grad school, for me, I've kind of told this story to a lot of people, but I completely was burned out on the guitar and on music in general, to the point where this is, for any classical guitarist, you understand the significance of this. I literally cut my fingernails off, which is, that's essentially like, casting your career off to the side and totally abandoning it, because we use our fingernails are kind of the foundation of our right hand technique. And I was even just gonna start looking for different career options, because there's so many factors that went into it. But I think a lot of it was, I was really, really burned out by this kind of over intellectualization of music. I feel like that happens so much in music school, and some of it I think is unavoidable, but it seemed like music had kind of lost all of its sense of mystery, to the point where I enjoyed talking about music to non-music majors more than to fellow music majors, because again, there was this sense of awe and mystery and just excitement and love for music when you talk to non-music majors who might have just been hobbyists. And with other music majors, there was often this sense of elitism and who's the greatest composer and why, and what era is, the most meaningful. And certainly not everybody was like that, but I did experience that a lot, and I just didn't really relate to that. So I know we had really different experiences in college, and we had different degrees, but do you feel like you experienced any of that burnout related to that, Jeremiah, or maybe any of that sense of elitism or anything like that?
Not specifically to like necessarily genre of music. As far as burnout goes, I didn't experience that. I mean, mostly because the field that I got into, I studied digital audio in college. That was my major, digital audio technology, and I got a bachelor's of science in that. But by the end of it, I was more worried about like, what the heck am I going to do with this degree more than anything else?
Right.
But as far as elitism goes, there's more of that in the like audio production realm. As far as like, I know some people probably heard of like the loudness wars and stuff like that. There's a lot of weird, like little things that you can get into as far as like arguments within the audio industry. But yeah, I was more worried about like, man, what am I going to do with this? So to backtrack a little bit, I went to college for digital audio, and that entailed musicianship courses, music theory courses, piano courses, which I'm still not very good at piano, by the way, but piano courses, and then a lot of mixing, mastering courses, like courses that were specifically designed for you to like write music and do sound design for like little short, either short films or like 3D animations or whatever, like, things like that. And so my biggest hurdle was like when I went to college, the audio department was kind of treated like a redheaded stepchild or whatever.
Right.
And my wife was a redhead, so I could say that. but yeah, like, so the rest of the school was geared more towards animation and engineering, but like a combination of like animation, engineering, and like gaming. And like pretty much all the students that were in those departments like got jobs like straight out of college. But the audio people were like all like very much it was not that way. And part of it too was like it was kind of smack dab in the middle of like the decline of like major studios, like where people were getting their home studios, and that's kind of what the appeal was too. Like, hey, man, I can make music on my laptop. Like, I can do that. But then also, like, even if you look at movies, like if you look at the credits for movies, they'll have like hundreds and hundreds of people in the like animation and lighting and rigging and all that stuff, all those departments for like if they have special effects or if they're animated movies, like, you know, Pixar movies or whatever. But and then you look at the sound department and it's like sound designers, it's like two guys. It's like basically the audio industry is like way harder to get into. So that was kind of more my letdown. It wasn't so much that I was burnt out. It was like, man, I just spent 4 years learning stuff that I love, but like I'm never going to be able to get a job like doing this stuff. And that's kind of where I kind of hit a wall.
Yeah. And yeah, I think we definitely shared that in that sense where that, you know, that feeling of just being defeated before you even get out of college. Cause it was kind of the same thing in the guitar world. I was preparing myself to do another 2 or 3 years of grueling work to get my doctorate, to be able to, you know, compete with other people going for these university teaching jobs. And yet those were few and far between, and people who get those jobs, you know, hold on to them until they, you know, as long as they can until they retire
for life. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
that's exactly how it is. That's exactly how it is in like movie, like audio stuff. Like you work at Skywalker Sound. It's like impossible to get into Skywalker Sound. And once you get a job there,
right,
you never leave. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And that's, I might be getting ahead of myself here talking about, you know, the beyond the guitar stuff, but by nature, I'm really not a risk taker. But, you know, taking this path with beyond the guitar and kind of forging my own, you know, career with that, looking on the outside is very much so taking a big risk. But when I kind of look back on it, and this is tying back into where I wish I would have started thinking about this while I was in school, just to kind of have gotten a head start on it. Really, in the long run, I feel like it was less risky than just hoping that one of these jobs would open up for me. You know, I was able to make something for myself and make opportunities for myself. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely something to consider there, because there are so many opportunities out there in the music world. But sometimes I think it's the more creative ones and the ones that we kind of make for ourselves that are the more realistic in many ways. Because it certainly is competitive. So after college, coming still in my burnout, I just took a job to pay the bills. I worked at Capital One in the collections department. So I was literally calling people up, telling them to pay on their delinquent accounts. And so it's just basically getting yelled at and cussed at and hung up on all day, every day. It was a very stressful job. And part of that, I actually just made a video about this recently up on YouTube about how this really stressful period led me to start finding more comfort in the guitar. The stress of my job and all the factors in my job that were out of my control really helped me start to pick the guitar back up again, despite my burnout, and kind of find comfort in the fact that when I was playing the guitar, I was in this little bubble of control, essentially, where, every mistake I made, I could track it back to some type of shortcoming in my technique, or just a need to slow down, and everything that I played correctly, I could take credit for with how I prepared properly for that. And it was just this, again, little bubble that I felt complete control over. And I found that really comforting. And so that's kind of what started to get me back into the guitar. But really what ultimately rekindled my passion for the guitar was arranging. So arranging, again, for people who just might not be familiar with the terminology, making an arrangement for the guitar is where you take somebody else's composition, a song or a piece of music that somebody else composed, and you adapt it to be played, in our case, on the guitar. So essentially, the more common terminology is usually like a guitar cover. But the way that I started dipping my toes into arranging was actually on Vine, which, for those of you who remember Vine, it was an app, a social media app where you could just post 6-second videos. And that worked perfectly. I saw other people, I've never been a successful early adopter of anything. I'm always kind of late to the game on different platforms, but I saw people using Vine and making music, which it just didn't seem like a platform that would be ideal for music because of the time limitation. But it worked out great for making arrangements of like movie themes or video game themes or TV show themes, because you often just needed that quick 6 seconds to be able to get that like main theme across so people could recognize it, and then it was done. And so that's when I started, I've always loved, video games and their soundtracks and movie soundtracks. And so I decided to kind of combine my love for those soundtracks with my guitar playing ability and try my hand at making these kind of unique arrangements for that. And so Vine is really what started, giving me confidence to explore this world. But as I was kind of thinking through all this, Jeremiah, I remembered you were actually involved with me in my very first arrangement. And I want to say, I'm going to put you on the spot and see if you can possibly remember. It's way before this whole Vine era. You remember?
Oh, wait a second. Wait, you talking about full length?
Yeah, a full arrangement.
So what, are you talking about the Christmas medley?
Yeah. Yeah. So we did this back in high school. Yeah, back in high school, we did this, like, it was a Christmas concert, and we did this guitar trio. So Jeremiah was joining us on guitar, and
I made it. I was the best part, for sure.
That's right. Yeah. It was the highlight of the show. And that was, I was just kind of realized that was my very first arrangement. It was just a medley of different Christmas songs. I don't remember too much about it. I remember it was, I actually think it was decent. It was a lot better than a lot of the other stuff we were putting out.
I think I watched it recently. I don't know if your mom had it somewhere.
I'm sure my mom shared it on Facebook.
But I just remember the end sounded like a cacophonous, like it was just insane strumming, and we were like really like. Oh yeah,
it was like Carol of the Bells at the end, I think.
Yeah, and we were like not in time. I mean, we were in time roughly, but it was like, I don't know. I just remember thinking like, oh man, this is something else. This is rough. That's just.
Sorry, you can crush my memory of how great I thought it was. It's no big deal.
I remember that. I remember we played on the stage in like front of some random. I don't even remember how we got invited to that thing. Where were we?
It was a school. I think it was at a college.
Was it in Efran?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't remember how.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember it was cold, and it was in Morocco.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it must have been Efran, because it's never cold in Morocco.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you did have the, being the drummer in the group, you were stuck with two guitarists who, at least myself to this day, I struggle with rhythm. So, yeah, I'm sure that was painful for you. So I definitely apologize. But yeah, that was
No,
the very
at the time,
first.
no, at the time, I don't think I realized. I mean, dude, I've listened to some of our videos that we took of our band, like playing stuff, and my time was really bad. Like it was really, really bad. I cringe, man. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't even know how. I was like, how did I not hear how out of time I was?
Yeah.
But
One
you
of
guys
these
didn't
days we
either,
should just
apparently. So
No, yeah. Well, and even just like I feel like it would almost be freeing sometimes to like go back into my maybe not like the narcissism of thinking that I was like the best thing ever. Although it was definitely a combination, and I think you saw the most of this, a combination probably of narcissism with like self-loathing at the same time. It was like this this weird mix. But
yeah, I just
but
remember we used to spend. We would hang out together, and you'd be I would just be sitting there, and you'd be practicing guitar, and then you'd just stop and start like punching the hell out of your wrists, and like it's good. And I'm just like, Nathan,
oh my god,
oh
that's
man,
so bad.
I was like, hey, bro, you're good, man. You're shredding, bro. Don't worry about it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I had some issues, but who didn't in high school, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so I feel like in a way it would be freeing to go back to that mindset of, because we must to an extent not have cared, because listening back to the recording of that album and all the mistakes that I made, like flubbed notes and stuff that made it into the final cut. Whereas now,
we also recorded that because, okay, so we mentioned that like 17-minute opus or whatever, that was not part of this album that we're talking about now. The album that we're talking about now was also not very good, but it was a little less pretentious. But we also recorded most of it like our last night together in high school or whatever, where you were like literally falling asleep between takes, and I was like furiously editing, because I think like, I don't know if you were leaving the next day.
I think I was, yeah. We were like right down to the wire.
Yeah, so I think that was the main thing, was that like we just had to record it.
Right. Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. I remember you were literally waking me up to like play.
Yeah.
So I would do a take. You would like edit it, I guess, try to make it like not be as terrible. And then I would fall asleep, and then you would wake me up when it was time to play again. Yeah, it's a miracle that anything came out of that at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was late. I don't remember what time it was, but also for those of you listening, that Nathan is borderline narcoleptic. So yeah, he falls asleep like 10 minutes into most movies when we were in high school. So
yeah, it takes a lot for me to make it through a movie.
But I thought that was pretty impressive. I was like, man, Nathan's falling asleep, and he's killing these takes. Like, that's what I thought in high school.
What you thought. Listening back to it, not so much, but yeah. But I'm tempted to like release these out to the world at some point, because I think that it is really comforting to like go back and see where people started, because I know that like one of the first things that I do when I discover a new YouTube channel or something of somebody that I really admire, I'm like, whoa, they're phenomenal at whatever it is that they're doing. One of the first things that I'll do is I'll go back to their oldest. I'll filter their videos by their oldest video, and I'll watch their very first video and compare it to what they're putting out now. And unless they're kind of, unless they've deleted their older videos and they're embarrassed by them, if they've kept their truly oldest video, it's so cool to see their evolution over their channel. And so, I like to be transparent about that kind of thing. Like, I tell people, like, anybody who's, whether they're trying to be pursuing a career in music or trying to pursue a career on YouTube or anything like that, I encourage people to go back and watch my first videos, because some of them are really painful to watch, for me at least. And so, yeah, same thing with our like album that we did way back then. Like, it's really not very good, but it shows that, like, you've got to start somewhere, at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, you did start out with that legit looking Star Wars medley.
Yeah, so I kind of did the bait and switch on my
right now, Nathan.
Yeah. I did people.
Although they are some of the
just go to the second video.
Yeah. Some of the visually, I would agree, but on the audio side, they're still pretty good.
Yeah, they still hold up all right. But yeah, for my first video, I had a team of guys film it for me, my Star Wars medley, and they did a phenomenal job. But then the next video I did myself, and yeah, there was a very big difference. So I feel like my early subscribers who were so excited to get on the boat right at the beginning with this awesome Star Wars video were then like, what the heck happened with the second one? He's given up already. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the long roundabout story about my very first arrangement. But so I was experimenting with Vine and dipping my toes into arranging. I still had no illusions of turning this into a career until I came across this article of I had met Graham Cochran back when I was in college recording an album for my church. He helped produce the album, and I knew he runs recordingrevolution.com. And, at the time, I just thought it was a blog of his that he kind of did on the side. I came across this article talking about how he was essentially making a massively successful career for himself in the online music space through, teaching people how to, build home studios on a budget and record, through his blog. And it blew my mind because this was the first person that I knew personally who was making a living for themselves in this online music world. And that somehow it just hit home because it was somebody that I knew. It made it that much more real as something that could be done. Obviously there were tons of people making it work, but I didn't know anybody personally, so it still felt kind of untouchable. So that was kind of the inspiration that I needed to kind of believe that, there's no guarantees obviously, but if I give this an honest shot, there's a chance that I could make a career for myself, doing something like YouTube, or, with these arrangements. And so when an opportunity arose, I quit Capital One and I took a part-time gig teaching guitar for a middle school. And that freed up enough time for me to start building a YouTube channel. And that's when I, released the Star Wars medley. And over time, things have kind of just, slowly built from there. The YouTube channel grew. And as it grew and as my audience grew, I was able to eventually quit that teaching gig and just teach from home, teaching private lessons. And Beyond the Guitar has just kind of evolved from there. So, I know we've been talking about my whole life after college and the start of Beyond the Guitar and what that looks like. But I was wondering, Jeremiah, if you can share kind of what your life with music has looked like since college.
Yeah. So, I should say that, I was in a band in college, and then, so that kind of got me exposed to a lot of like recording stuff, like practically, because at school you can only do so much with that. So that was cool. But since college, I started working at a communications company, and I still work there. It's my day job. Since then, actually, before that, I was helping my dad he's an English teacher, and he was developing an English learning program. So I actually was doing like some video editing and audio editing for that. But then I got a day job doing basically it's customer support, and now I do QE. Quality engineering for the company. But so on the side, I've been doing audio work for random things like commercials no one's ever seen, or like a lot of because I work in the Bay Area, so I live and work in the Bay Area. So I've done a lot of like corporate, like internal, like promotional stuff, or like inspirational things, or things for like Cisco or Ericsson or Plantronics or whatever. But then on top of that, I did have the opportunity to like work on a movie set one time for this like movie that no one saw, but that was really cool. I was a boom mic operator. That was fun. And then I've done random like mixing jobs for like web series and short films and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And then I've been helping you out with stuff, but like I'm trying to develop my work outside of my day job to like eventually move over to that. But it's kind of like, it's kind of hard. I mean, I've been trying to continue to make music on my own. And that's kind of been a hurdle, like just like the mental drag that it is. Cause I also have I have a wife and kids and stuff. And so it's like, how much time do you spend on that kind of stuff? Like, will it pay out or whatever? I mean, and honestly, like I started making music again, recently just because I love doing it, and I feel like I owed it to myself to like get back to it. So, hopefully there's more of that to come. I just gotta like really drill down and do it. But yeah, that's kind of been my journey, and hopefully there's a brighter end, because I really, having a job that just pays the bills is like, for if that's the case for forever, then it's like, oh man, I don't want that to be me. So anyway, so I'm trying to work towards something different.
Yeah, and I think, I know we've been kind of talking about this and talking through this, with each other in kind of the various stages of our journey with our careers. And I think you're going to be able to provide a lot of valuable insight and encouragement to the people listening, because I know there are a lot of people, that watch my videos who are either hobbyists or who are interested in pursuing a career in music, but also have a day job currently. And so I think, they'll be able to relate to things that you're dealing with related to that, that I might not be able to provide the same insight into. So I'm really looking forward to diving into some of those elements with you, for sure. Cause it's really hard to balance all of that when, I remember, when I was working at the bank as a day job, and trying to even just practice, much less build a career on the side, especially with wife and kids, like there's a lot to balance. And so you have to be very strategic in your time. So, there's a lot of challenges and hurdles there. So I think it'll be cool to kind of explore what that balance looks like more. But yeah, many of you might not know that Jeremiah has been part of Beyond the Guitar, kind of behind the scenes in an unofficial capacity, since the beginning. Really, he's my go-to guy for if I have audio questions, because I'm literally figuring everything. Ever since this whole thing started, I've been figuring everything out as I go, whether it's video production or audio production or social media, any type of entrepreneurship. I'm still figuring it out as I go. So anytime I have audio questions, and usually many of the same questions over and over and over, Jeremiah just gets stuck with helping me out. And so he's been a massive help for years now behind the scenes. He's the guy I call, when I feel like things are falling apart and I'm, wondering what I'm doing, over the course of the years. There's always times, I think, for everybody, if they're being honest, where they just kind of are wondering if they're doing the right thing, or kind of like what he said, as far as, is this avenue worth going, or am I wasting my time with this project, or, all these questions that we're constantly asking ourselves. he's the guy that I call and, kind of vent to, or he can kind of talk me off the edge, so to speak, for certain things like that. So,
and for the record, shout out to my brother Spike Diaz. You can find him on YouTube, Spike Diaz. But he hasn't been on YouTube as much lately. But he had a guitar channel, and I was like, Nathan, man, you could freaking kill on YouTube. My brother has like 10,000 subscribers, and Nathan, was just like, I don't know, whatever. But thanks to Vine, slowly things started ramping up. But that being said, I need to take my own advice and get myself into gear and start actually, getting back on the old grind, the old workhorse.
Yeah, putting some more stuff out into the world.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to do some more like collaborations and stuff as well, down the pipe. But it all comes down to time. But we're really excited about sharing this podcast with you guys and exploring lots of different guitar related topics, whether it's talking about practice routines and practice habits, or just music related discussion in general, or things like this where we just kind of tell stories, and we got a lot that we want to share, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun being able to do it together.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, before I don't know, I'm always kind of interested to hear before we wrap up, I don't know if there's any insights that come to mind that you want to share as far as like kind of since we talked about you've kind of been behind the scenes involved with like my whole beyond the guitar experience, like any insights on what it's kind of looked like from your end, because I get so in my own head and so involved in just doing my own thing that I don't know, sometimes it's kind of interesting to hear other people's perspectives, like things like it's so cool to I've told you this, but I don't know if I've told you to the extent how much it means to me and how awesome it is that Jeremiah's son will, ever since he was just like a real little guy, would watch my videos. They would put my videos on. And so now he's turning 3, right? And
yeah, he's turning 3 tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has his little ukulele, and he'll sit there and like strum along with my videos, and he's far more interested in the guitar than my own son is, which we got to work on. And he does this whole like strumming thing where he like keeps a beat and everything. Yeah, it's actually really impressive. But I just think that's so awesome, and that really means a lot to me that because that doesn't happen by accident. You guys put those videos on for him, and so that yeah. Well,
so my wife is very musical as well. She's a really great vocalist. Also doesn't really have anything out there, but she's really good at singing. But so we've just like dreaded the idea of our kids just being like the only thing they listen to is like kiddie music that drives parents crazy. And there is some of that, like, my son Pax, his name is Pax. He loves Daniel Tiger, and there's some like really cheesy songs in Daniel Tiger, but he also like loves watching Nathan's channel, and then all kinds of other types of music that we all like electronic music to anything from like Daft Punk to like this Mexican songwriter, her name is Natalia Lafourcade, or like I don't know, I'm in a band. He likes the songs that I write with my buddy, and yeah, so he just has a huge musical taste range. But yeah, he loves watching Nathan's stuff. And yeah, like Nathan said, he was just like sit there with his ukulele and freaking jam out. But what I was going to say was that, like, how has it looked on my end? For my side, all of my favorite of your arrangements are the least viewed. And I'm like, man, freaking mainstream.
That's how it goes.
Audiences don't know what the hell they're... No, just kidding. If any of you guys like the mainstream stuff, it's cool. Don't worry about it.
If we've got any Fortnite fans in here, then it's okay. Yeah, that's going to be... I feel like that'll be an episode in and of itself, talking about the Fortnite guitar phenomenon and how like that kind of
Blew everything
shattered
up.
my. Well, it blew things up, but then in the end, the twist was that it kind of shattered my expectations of what like going viral can actually entail.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always end positively.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've mentioned this to you before, but I feel like you've had these crazy, like, it's like the stock market. You had like with Vine, I remember you had that one with, oh dude, I don't even remember her name, but you covered,
Ruth B.
Yeah.
Right?
Ruth B. Yeah. You covered one of her songs and you blew up on Vine. Yeah. But then, like, that's like all anyone really paid attention to was like that thing,
right?
And then you had a few more of those where like you would get some loyal followers, but mostly it was just like a mass of like people that just liked it because of the original. And then the same thing happened like when you were on Crew, your Star Wars video. The Crew was a streaming platform that died, but anyways, you had somebody posted on like Reddit or whatever, and then like it blew up on Reddit, and that's kind of how like, but then that video was like on some random dude's YouTube channel, so like you didn't really get any followers from it.
Yeah, it was a weird roundabout
and then so
thing.
I feel like there's just been like this slow uptick, but like like with these massive peaks, and Fortnite was definitely one of those where it's like, holy crap, your channel's blowing up, but then in reality it's like, oh, there's just a bunch of kids that just want like 1,000 Fortnite videos. Like, right.
They don't want me to play anything except for Fortnite.
Yeah.
Fortnite dances on guitar. Yeah. It's interesting. And I think that's how it works for a lot of people where, they kind of anticipate that like it's all about chasing that viral moment. And then if I get that one video that pops, I'm set. And you know, it's more about the long game, and I think that's, you know, a lot of my distressed calls with Jeremiah toward the beginning were, I think were related to that, where, lamenting about certain videos not performing the way that I hoped they would, and things like that, and slowly I'm coming to terms with the fact that you can't beat yourself up over all those numbers, and again, it's about the long game. It's about building a community and an audience of people who truly care about what you're doing. And when you have something that pops, you are going to get a new percentage, a small percentage of those people who are going to be totally sold on what you're doing, and those are the people that you want to really play for as you go forward.
Yeah.
So
shout out to everyone on the Patreon Discord.
Yeah,
I'm terrible, dude. I'm so bad about social media. Like, I'm never on there.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, but it's your job though. But I'm never on there. But for my my bro over here, Nathan, I have a lot of love for all the patrons and stuff that have been supporting you. So shout out to the BTG community out there.
Yeah, for sure. I owe a lot to a lot of people, so you know who you are. I'm very, very thankful for all of you. Unless you have anything else, Jeremiah, I think that's a kind of a good place to wrap it up for episode 1.
Yeah.
So as far as socials, where you can find us, for me, you can find me anywhere under Beyond the Guitar. Beyond the Guitar is my YouTube channel, and I have instructional content on my website, beyondtheguitar.com. And if you're interested in learning how to make your own classical or fingerstyle guitar arrangements, which is obviously what I do, you can go to my website and take my free training, Fretboard Freedom. That's a great way to get started. For you, Jeremiah, if you can let people know where they can find you.
I play drums for a band called Junko. My buddy Andrew and I write like lo-fi indie rock type music. So it's pretty chill. That's JUNCO. You can find us on Spotify, or iTunes or whatever. And then for myself, I do have a instrumental lo-fi beat track called Beacon, and my artist name is Chomachi. That's CHOMACHI. But yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I plan on releasing more music soon. That's my homework. So
that's right.
You'll have to.
Gonna keep you on track.
Yeah. You got to keep me honest, Nathan.
I will do. I am a fan, so I am looking forward to it.
Thanks, bro.
All right. Well, that wraps the inaugural episode of the Beyond the Guitar podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Much love, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace out, everybody.